Welcome everyone. Today we have Ekrem. We worked together at BCG and then he did his MBA in INSEAD and then he joined Google. And he's a perfect person to answer the question of, do you need an MBA to get into tech or consulting? Shall we get started?
Yes, let's.
All right, let's do it. Welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to talk about a couple of things. So first of all, I will of course ask you to perhaps give a quick introduction of who you are. But then after this, let's talk about some pros and cons of doing an MBA, and then we're going to make a verdict at the end.
Yeah, of course. So I used to work in BCG together with you, of course. And then I did my MBA at INSEAD. And now I work at Google.
All right, fantastic. Now let's get started with some pros. Why do you think we might need an MBA, or what might be some advantages of getting an MBA degree?
Yeah, of course. Before diving into the specific advantages, I first want to mention the fact that an MBA is a very personal decision, right? You get as much out of it as you put in. So people, get an MBA for various different reasons. And if that's one of the reasons that you feel like you need to get an MBA, then, there are significant advantages. Now, one of the advantages I think I would like to mention is the, core education aspect of it, which is the education that you get. So, going to an MBA, you get to learn about finance, accounting, strategy, marketing, and a whole lot of other specialties. I, for example, took a couple of classes on data analytics. I also took some on organizational behavior, as well as some on social impact investing. On top of the core educational work, you do have access to this wonderful network of people that did the MBA together with you. As my cohort, we use that network quite a lot. Now, this might not really show up in the short term, and it's not really a tangible, quantifiable impact, as, say, for example, having the skills to do a particular data regression model, or, for example, being able to create an annual report or a balance of payments, etc. But it's still a very significant advantage of doing an MBA. I've actually seen this little by little in our current cohort, where if somebody has a question or needs to reach out to a certain person working in a certain field, in a certain region, then they can do so via the MBA network that they have. And that's, I think, a very important skill as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also imagine that this is more related to mid to long term, but let's say you need another job or you just really want to understand available opportunities. I guess your networking will help you for that too, right?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I think this is kind of a good segue to kind of say, what are the different reasons that one might want to do an MBA? Now, some of the things that I've seen, for example, is the first one being that you'd like to further your own career. So you gain the skills necessary in order to be able to move up in your current career path. Others are typically around a career change. And there's a couple of examples on this. So and I'm going to say this in specific to consulting. So you have people who are not in consulting currently, but who would like to join at a consulting firm. There are people who were working at a consulting firm and now would like to join a non-consulting or would like to get out of consulting. There are people who are not working in a consulting and would like to switch their careers to a non-consulting as well.
Sounds quite messy.
Yes, it is. And I think it's beneficial for all of these involved, depending on what you would like to do. Of course, within the MBA, you have access to a lot of people who have a consulting background, so they provide some expertise of what goes on in a consulting firm if you're not aware. And also, the MBA does provide you with skills that might be necessary when you do go into consulting. For example, thinking analytically, structuring problems, trying to find the root cause of an issue and then addressing that. There's a whole host of strategy classes that you can take that deal with this.
So take me back to the classes that you took. Tell me whether this helped you when you joined Google.
Yeah, of course. So at an MBA, you first take a core number of classes, right? And so that everybody has at least the basics down together, and then you can choose electives. Now, I chose electives such as organizational behavior, how to enact change in an organization in the best and most effective way. I've also taken a class on data analysis and regression models and data modeling. I've also taken a class on decision making, but that was more for me. So the skills that I learned in, let's say, organizational behavior, the skills that I learned in data modeling, those are actually some of the skills that I sometimes employ at Google right now. However, it depends. I think the theme of today is it depends. So it depends on where you are, where you would like to work, and which courses that you would like to take that you think will give you the skills necessary to have them. And I do also want to preface that an MBA is not the only place to get these skills. Data analysis is not a topic that's only in an MBA. Organizational behavior is not a class that's only in an MBA. But this is how I use mine, and these are the skills that I've acquired.
I did not do an MBA, but I would imagine that, for example, if I were to do my MBA while I was at BCG, perhaps that 1 or 2 additional years would give me this opportunity to really think about what do I want to become or what kind of skills do I want to really build on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the aspects that I found that I learned when I was doing consulting on the job was trying to find my way around annual reports, income statements, et cetera. I learned all of these on the job and asked, people who were working there and just researched and kind of learned on my own.
Absolutely.
However, an MBA teaches you those things. You have people who tell you how to build a balance of payments, how to build an annual report, how to build an income statement, and which actions items go into which particular line items. So that's definitely useful. And I would also like to mention one of the advantages of having an MBA with respect to consulting is that consulting firms know that there are a lot of talent pools in top MBAs. And so what they do is they do active recruitment in these schools. And it's a very common channel for somebody that's in an MBA to go into one of these companies. And I also want to say that there's also a lot of career resources dedicated to helping people who are doing an MBA to get into consulting.
It also gives you a great brand name, right?
Yes, of course. If you are in one of these, top 30 in the world, MBAs, that definitely helps you with your brand, and also definitely helps you when you go and you try to apply for consulting companies. But also, it definitely helps when you apply to tech companies as well. I don't think that brand building is something exclusive to consulting.
Absolutely. So far we've talked about the networking aspects, the upskilling aspects, as well as building up your brand. But I would also imagine that the other advantage here could be perhaps you can get a year or two of a break as well, right? As you get into your MBA.
Of course. I mean, consultants, in some cases, if they perform well, their consulting company will sponsor them to get an MBA. Now, the reason behind this is that consulting companies also know that having an MBA education is beneficial for their employees, and they do gain additional skills that would help them when they come back and continue to work in that consulting firm. Moreover, I do also want to mention that these people who were sponsored by the consulting firms, there is an element of being slightly more stress-free of the fact that they don't need to actively recruit for a role before their MBA is over. And so I think that definitely helps with them, maybe taking a break out of their consulting firm. However, I do want to mention that there is a significant amount of coursework, so there is a significant amount of work. It's not just no work and all fun.
Yeah, you made the point earlier. Okay, so based on what we discussed so far, I definitely see a value of getting our MBA, but let's just talk about perhaps some disadvantages. So why might be some reasons why MBA may not be required to get into consulting or tech?
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about the main disadvantage, which is resource. So it does cost money and time to get an MBA. Specifically, if you get in one of these top MBA schools like Harvard, Columbia, those require quite a bit of money, and most students are, in financial debt, and they incur a financial burden. Also, it does mean that you are taking time away from work, maybe perhaps for 2 years, maybe for 1 year, depending on which program you're in. And that will also impact maybe your career path in the sense that if somebody did not do an MBA, they might be maybe at a level higher than you when you come back because they've just had more work experience. The understanding that is that you maybe make that up further down the line in the long run. But in the short run, these are some of the, let's say, disadvantages, or let's say the cost that you would have to incur to get an MBA. There's also an additional thing that I want to mention, which is depending on what you want to do, maybe getting an MBA at the top, most expensive, most prestigious school is not something that's the best for you. I've seen cases where people are looking to supplement themselves with particular skills within the coursework of an MBA, within their current career progression, and they do not want to take time away from work. So in that case, what you can do is you can go to a local school which provides MBA coursework or which provides an MBA diploma, and you can do that while you're working. And that's also definitely an option.
I also heard about executive MBAs, right? It's also something that is also provided.
Yes, definitely. But I believe the requirements for an executive MBA in terms of work experience are higher than a normal MBA. So that's probably for people that have worked for a significant amount of years.
It makes a lot of sense. So I definitely understand there's a lot of pros, perhaps a bit of cons as well. But what is the verdict? So let's say if there's one thing that people can take away out of our discussion today, is it compulsory to get an MBA to get into tech or consulting?
So I would say it depends. It depends on what you would like to do, what you would like to get out of the MBA, and what you're willing to pay to get it, whether that's, in terms of money or time.
So it depends after all.
Yes, it does.
All right. Thanks a lot for your time, Ekrem, and your insights.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you found today's conversation useful. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and we're going to see you in the next video.